for the most part, first, I appreciate you joining me. Right, we got a lot going on, but I felt like this was the perfect time to kind of talk about this, and partially because a lot of people are talking about it, and it's one of those conversations that I was surprised at how many people are taking this side.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Okay guys, quickly, this video sponsored by Exter, the largest smart wallet brand in the world, right? Exter sent me this wallet and, gave it to me to review, and quickly, just want to say some quick features about it. One of the best things about it is how seamlessly you can get to your cards. So boom, they pop out through this mechanism right here. So you pop it out, your cards just pop right out, slide it back in, and boom, just pop it right out. I think typically keep the card that you use the most at the back, and then so once it pops out, that's the card you can use right away, right? I think the best feature, in my opinion, you can carry cash as well, but the best feature, in my opinion, is the fact that it has a tracking device. You do have to download a Chipolo app, and once you get that app, you can just ring to see where your wallet is. Literally, this happened to me last week where I had to ring to see where the wallet was. You ring to find, and therefore your wallet starts ringing, and you can always see the location of your wallet on the Chipolo app. You can also ring your phone if you have your wallet to find out where your phone is by clicking this button twice after your phone is connected, and now your phone rings, right? So that's cool as well. Right now for 4th of July, there's a current sale of 15% off. You can get that, but if you use the link below as well, you get an additional 5% off. So overall, that's 20% off for this wallet, and it's a smart wallet. So guys, get your Extra wallet right now, and let's get back to the video. About Luffy, fate, destiny, prophecy, and some people are taking some very hard stances, where they're saying at this point, they don't know about One Piece, they don't know about Luffy, they don't understand what's going on. So I saw your tweet, and I know you've talked about, destiny and fate in the past, the will of D, inherited will. And I know it's a topic you've covered very well. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain about just how you've been feeling about these things, where I saw your tweet about it, where for the most part you said, or basically Luffy isn't less free if a prophecy exists foretelling him, so long as the prophecy does not influence what he chooses to do. So God isn't telling Luffy what to do, he's observing him do it through a lens of time and announcing it. So I guess first start with your general thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough conversation to have, right? Because this is, this breaches faith a little bit. These are the same kinds of topics of conversation. So I want to make it clear, I'm not telling anybody what they should or shouldn't believe, how they should interpret things or that sort of thing. We're just trying to talk about One Piece, basically. And another thing that I think is important about this conversation is that you got to put aside your biases, right? You don't have to completely put aside, but just keep in mind that there's different philosophies other than your own.
Right.
And particularly when it comes to One Piece and a lot of things, there's a lot of Eastern differences. I'm not going to point to all the ones specifically, but there's some ways of thinking in that part of the world that are different from where we are, where some of these things might just intuitively make more sense to them.
That's a good point.
But when it comes to fate, destiny, that obviously doesn't apply because that's a worldwide deal. And so I just feel like, the reason that I made that tweet in the first place is I saw a tweet absolutely blow up that basically was like criticizing Luffy and One Piece because they said that this turn in the story contradicts one of the main themes of the story, which is free will. Mm-hmm. And I really think that this take is a little bit ignorant, right?
Okay.
And I say that because there's obviously a lot of nuance that surrounds this conversation that I'm not sure if people have been exposed to.
Okay.
The idea of free will and destiny can coexist.
Yes.
Depending on sort of who's teaching you how to apply those concepts, I guess. And so the way that I like to think about it sometimes, if I'm trying to, a lot of the times when I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to make it work, right? It's not necessarily that I know how it will be. I'm taking what we have here and the two things, and I'm trying to fit them together in a way that would make for a cohesive story. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go that way or not. Just this is how I would prefer to think about it and sort of how I see an avenue for success.
So you're saying glass half full. for the most part.
Yeah, that's my mentality in
Yeah.
general, you know, and it could be proven wrong at some point, but we gotta wait to get there.
Yes.
But mainly the difference, or the way that I like to think about this is, you know, you could have somebody who's fated to save the world, right? And you
Yes.
tell that person that they're fated to save the world, and they're like, okay, and then they sit on their ass and they watch TV all day, and so it's like, oh well, I'm fated to save the world, right? So I just, you know, I don't got to do nothing.
Yes.
And that would never work, ever. It would never ever work. And so it sort of builds into this sort of idea that when it comes to destiny and fate, it's like opportunity. Like opportunity presents itself, which you may or may not be able to seize depending on how you use your free will.
Okay.
So it's like these two things existing at once. Fate provides those things, those opportunities for you to do things, but you still have to do them. And I think that's kind of that's my dividing line, you know. And you can also think about this from like a grander scale as well. It's like, I mean, this depends on how you think about God, right? But like, you know, a lot of people have it in their mind that, oh well, God just, you know, he has the plan set out for you. I mean, that's not always true. You know, there's many instances of tragedy in which, you know, it's like you're not part, you know, it's not necessarily apparent, you know,
Yes.
what your big place is in the grand scheme of how everything works. But does he following along normal time, or does he know everything? And I think in most cases he knows everything always.
Right.
So he can see the timeline is not chopped for him.
Because that's a conversation we have all the time, where it's like, okay, with God knowing everything that's going to happen, and of course, again, it depends on what you believe in, and assigning, you know, free will to human beings. Technically, with him knowing what's going to happen, aren't we devoid of free will because it's already set in stone? Right?
Or maybe he's just allowing the pieces to move and conceive those movements. You know?
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying there?
There's a question of, okay, if you know what's going to happen, why does free will even matter if you already know the outcome? You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, the outcome is set. Like for instance, for my life, the outcome, how it begins, how it ends, he knows. That person knows. So essentially, destiny, prophecy, whatever.
Well, I think this is, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But moving within. But I have free will. So everything I do in my life, in my mind, I'm moving the way that I'm supposed to move. Nothing is influencing me. But isn't my fate already set, or can I change that? Yeah.
So I think this is where you start getting into the trouble. And this you know, outside of how you might interpret this in real life, this is like time traveling stories as well. It's like, once you know what it is that you're going to do you still do it?
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of diverges you from the path of, well, I'm making each decision as we go. It's like I have some sort of end objective.
Yes.
In this case, it works really, really well in One Piece, simply because you know that Luffy is not going to care what this prophecy says.
Right.
He's going to do what he wants, when he wants to, how he wants to. And I think this is going to be important, personally. I think that this is going to be an important part of the story going forward. These prophecies may or may not exist, but are they actually going to convince Luffy to change his course? No, absolutely not. You know, and in fact, that might be, I hope that that's an important part of everything. I think one of the you know, prophecy, destiny sort of things I think it can be handled very poorly, just from a story, you know, reading perspective. But what you typically, when I really like it a lot, is when it's with, well, we know who the chosen one is going to be, but how everybody else sees them solving the problem isn't how they themselves have decided to solve the problem. And it's, you know, I've been thinking about storytelling a lot. It's like the same thing. I don't know if you read a lot of like heist stories, you know, where they have to go steal something. But oftentimes it's like, okay, you know, we got our band together, right? And we're all going to go steal the expensive watch from you know, the bank or something like that. And so every member's got a job to do, and then they actually go to do it, and it screws up every which way, you know. And then they reorganize those pieces in order to accomplish the same task but in a different way. And so I kind of think of it in the same way, like, okay, well, the prophecy, you know, is the plan, right? And so everyone sort of decided how the plan's going to work. You're going to go blow up the red line, right, with the Pluton. And then you're going to go, you know, the red line's going to fall onto Fishman Island. And so you got to take the using the Sea Kings and pull all the fishmen up to safety. You know, it's like they've got some sort of plan for how these tools are going to work. And Luffy's going to come in there and he's going to say, you know what? I got a better way of doing this. I'm not going to do it your way because I don't care. I didn't even listen to what you were saying five seconds ago, you know? And that's kind of how I hope that it goes. That's the glass half full of, like, you know, I'm not going to presume that this is going to go the way that I don't want it to. I'm going to try to make it work in a way that I like it.
Right.
in my head.
When I think of prophecy as well in One Piece, for Madame Shirley and her prophecy that she had about Fishman Island, where she sees Luffy basically destroying Fishman Island, we know that's not going to happen. Well, the thing is going to happen, but the context of the situation,
How is it going to happen?
How is it going to happen? Because from her perspective, it's like Luffy is destroying Fishman Island, so that's somebody we have to look out for. But we know if Luffy is destroying Fishman Island, it's for a reason. So I guess in something like this, how does this coincide with, I guess, someone's issue? Because this has been something since Fishman Island, and I haven't seen any complaints about it, like, ever, with that particular part of the story. But now when it's, I think, a bit more wide scale, whereas Luffy's journey entirely, when you go back to Odin and Wano, and I'm not sure if you think Luffy's Joy Boy, it's starting to, I think, strike a nerve. Do you think part of it is also PTSD from Naruto, where people are looking at One Piece and they're saying, I don't want it to be what Naruto is, where Naruto ended up being a reincarnation of something? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this has been pointed out to me. This is another part of the conversation, is like, well, destiny has been an element in One Piece since even before Fishman Island.
Absolutely.
Right? And even if you didn't understand it for what it was at the time, it's just been littered throughout the story. Pretty much every Roger moment includes a mention of fate.
Yes.
Or when Luffy is going to be killed by Buggy in Logtown, you know?
Something happens.
Right. And so, you know, fate, again, this all intermixed with religion, and, you know, it's unfortunate that that's the case, because it does turn some people off, but,
Yes.
you know, these things bleed together. And I think that I think what you're seeing now is people are really starting to understand, oh, this isn't just like a word on a page. This is actually
something.
turning. Yeah, this is, you know, and One Piece is highly political, and also it's highly spiritual. Very much so, more than your other. And so when you start getting into these specific ideas, people start basically chiming in on to whether they agree with them or not.
Somebody told me I should stop making political videos on One Piece because I'm digging too deep. Complain about
no, that's
that.
ridiculous. Like, if you got to read like a smooth brain in order to you know, you got like government, right? Like, what do you think all this means?
It's so many instances where One Piece touches on these topics, and it's like, you want me to just blatantly ignore it because you have something where every time you think of politics, it triggers you or turns you off. It's there. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah. You know, people, you know, it's like how you know, there's reality, and then there's how you interpret reality, right? So there's a lot of people who just go through One Piece and all this flies over their head, and someone points out, it's like, oh, no, that's not how. wait a second. Okay, I'm gonna put my head back in the sand here for a second. If you just shut up, you know.
They don't want to see.
Yeah, but you know, I kind of missed part of your question, but a thought that I did have, you know, it's like with the whole Fishman Island prophecy, you know, it's like, you know, like there's situations in which, you know, Luffy could actually reasonably destroy Fishman Island. Of course, you bring that up in the context of the story, and it's like, oh, of course, Luffy's not going to do that. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, he might not. You know, maybe the shadow is misleading. Maybe another person with the strat shows up. Who knows? Maybe that's Shanks. Okay, I don't know. You know, but more likely that is Luffy. More likely this prophecy is probably going to end up being correct. So it's more interesting how it happens. So then you like go back throughout the story, and it's like, okay, how do we make sense of this? It's like, well, Luffy's destroyed things similar to that a couple times, like for instance in Arlong Park, where he destroys
Nami's
the prison
building,
prison, right? And that's the context. I don't know if it's actually stated that way or not. My memory's not that good, but you know, that's the context of this place. Is this was Nami's prison, and he destroyed it. Well, Fishman Island might be the fisherman's prison. You know, in just the same way, you can make a really reasonable argument that that's the case, because they have a place to hide from the rest of the world. And you know, I think there's a prevailing message in One Piece that bringing people together more often than not, even if it causes conflicts at times, is pretty much the only way to, you know, bring people together long term. And sometimes you have to force it, you know. In this case, you know, Luffy, this is a theory from a long time ago, but you know, obviously everyone thinks, okay, well, Luffy's going to destroy the Fishman Island because he destroys the red line, and the rocks are going to fall on Fishman Island, and so then that, you know, but it could be a very direct way, like literally Luffy punches Fishman Island, and it's like, anybody, you know, I'm sorry, you don't get the choice to stay here. You get to go up there, and we'll figure out our differences.
You have to go now. We have to figure it out. And then, of course, we have the mention of the Noah, and we have the whole context of Joy Boy and the promise to the Neptunians, and all that with Shirahoshi. So then it's like, okay, what's the purpose of Noah? So if it's there to transport people, then, you know, when you start to put things together, it starts to make sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the Noah was from, you know, it's like this salvation, right? You know, for
saving people.
You know, I personally, I kind of imagine a scene in my mind where, you know, the Noah's ready to leave, right? And there's people that are just
that
like,
wanna
no, we're not
go.
going up there.
Yeah,
All right, the
yeah.
humans are bad. All right, we'd rather die than even entertain the notion. And I think that this is only going to be made even more justifiable in the story, because I think that more bad things are going to happen to them. You like talk about Shirahoshi being Poseidon, right? You know,
Yes.
that's when that might become a big deal. You know, Fishmen as well are now part of the world government. You know, how will that story will that be a smooth ride all the way until the end? I doubt it. You know, and so
we saw in the Reverie where Shirahoshi was almost kidnapped.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
In front of everyone.
Exactly. Right. And so you're like, okay, everyone's got to leave, right? We've decided that everyone's got to leave. Noah's leaving now. This is your chance. Otherwise, you're stuck. And then they're like, you know, we would rather die. And so then what is Luffy going to do? What do you really think Luffy's going to do? Is he going to just let those people throw away their lives?
He's going to destroy where they are, so they have to leave.
Right. You know, it's like, okay, well, if you want to, then you can drown here. Otherwise, the ship's, you know, I'm going to give you an opportunity. The ship's right there. But it's an interesting conversation. I think you were talking about, you know, it's like this has been in the story for a while. It's just, I think that, you know, a lot of thoughts, and this is just the way that it is. It's mob mentality, you know,
right.
And that has a negative connotation to it. I don't mean necessarily that's, you know, it's like there comes a point in time where it's like everybody gets on the train. They all understand where it's going. I think that we've reached that point, and now you're starting to get to the pushback. And so, you know, I think it's important at least to talk about it from both sides, right? This could also go poorly, right? Naruto happened. If Luffy is just the reincarnation of Joyboy, and there's the nuance between all that makes it good or not. I don't like people who say, okay, this is bad, you know, but you know, it's not automatically good either.
I think what's been happening is that people are, because of Wano and because of things somewhat coming together in Wano, they're looking at Luffy and looking at his journey. And my thing was, if you've never had an issue with Luffy being special, this should not bother you at all. Because if you just go through the story, there's so many instances of special occurrences happening for Luffy to escape, to be saved, to be mentored. This is his story, it's his journey. But I guess because, you know, talking to some people last night, they mentioned Luffy and the Voice of All Things that happened recently, where it seems like he can telepathically communicate. Now with the Devil Fruit, people are holding on to the fact that Luffy got a terrible Devil Fruit, and because of his creativeness and his creativity, he was able to make it work and make it amazing. And now people in their minds, it's like, okay, if Luffy's Devil Fruit is one of these special Devil Fruits that everyone wants, at this point Luffy had everything in his power to succeed. And the tweet that I responded to, they were talking about how they dislike Luffy now because everything he did was destiny. They mentioned Rayleigh, they mentioned his fruit, and then they said they're going to support Kid from now on because Kid never had any help.
You know, I feel like a lot of this conversation is related to luck. A lot of people really don't like luck. This conversation is so big, you kind of got to get a little bit derivative too. But it's like, well, it was cool when Luffy had the rubber fruit when no one knew that it was overpowered. Well, it doesn't change the fact that you presume by the end of the story that his fruit is overpowered. You know, whether someone knew that or not, it doesn't change the fact that he's going to become the strongest. Why is he going to become the strongest? Because his heritage is overpowered, because he's been through all of these obstacles and had a lot of fortunate occurrences, and he has this particular devil fruit and all these things. So it really doesn't change much. And I guess the big thing about luck, you know, it's a very thin line from a storytelling perspective, because you don't want to feel like, okay, well, this is all really convenient.
Yes.
But you know, the way that, you know, I find to balance all this out is you're not choosy with who gets lucky. Yeah, the Straw Hats do get really lucky. That's true. Maybe a little bit more than your next person, but who else in the story is also really lucky? Someone like Blackbeard. Okay, who's the main villain of the story? You know, it works in all sorts of different ways.
The argument I've also used before is like, you know, with Kid and going against all these Yonko, like there's so many times
and still alive.
He could have died and he's still alive. You know, Shanks just lost his arm. So luck does play a part for a lot of these characters, but we're just following Luffy's story, so it seems, you know, like it's
right.
It's more apparent.
So I think that people take this whole destiny thing and like equate it in this way. It's like, oh, okay, you know, because it's his destiny, the story's going to force him to become this thing. And I think that I was always started with this premise of, okay, well, Luffy's going to get the opportunities. He's also going to have the free will to decide upon them. But luck is also a factor in all things. And
of course.
YouTube in all things.
Yes, that
you
is
can
true.
you can be the most talented person in the world, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll succeed in anything. You can be less talented and still succeed if you just get a lucky break. It's like, I think that's, going back to whole Logtown and the lightning bolt striking when it did, probably from Dragon, right? But still, Dragon arriving at the exact time that he did, that is absurdly lucky. And the story even sort of plays it in that direction, like, several times throughout, it's like, oh, I can't pull up the quotes, I'm not Morge or Tech,
Devil's
but,
luck.
it's like, yeah, exactly.
This entire scenario, it derives from people looking at the situation and they feel like everything is already planned out. You mentioned Luffy having the free will to decide things, and it made me think about Rayleigh and him saying they were too early, and then once they find the One Piece, they're gonna have to make a decision, right? So for Luffy and them, once they find the One Piece, Luffy, like we said, he's not gonna care, right? It doesn't matter what the world wants him to do. He's gonna do things the way he normally does them. So then you also think about someone like Roger, and something we stumbled upon was, do we think Roger, his goal was to start the Great Pirate Era? Like when he was walking to his death, in his mind, he's like, I'm gonna start the next Great Pirate Era? Or was that something that just happened organically? How do you feel about that?
Well, so I think it's a combination of two of them. This is another very subtle theme in One Piece, and I think we're about to get here in Wano, and I'm actually almost tearing up right now thinking about it, because that's how my brain works. But the people's will matters.
Yeah.
Oda's philosophy, I think, is that the world will eventually find solutions to its problems, because that's what the people want.
Yes.
And I think that we're going to get that soon in Wano, when you find out that over the course of 20 years, all these people, both dead and alive, their accumulated desires is going to have an impact on things that happen. When the people have a will, that will find a way to manifest. And so I think that's when you see, like, well, did Roger know whether he was Joyboy or not when he set out to go, find all the secrets of the world? And when he found all the answers, did he immediately assume, like, okay, well, maybe he did, maybe the prophecy said it, but it's like that. Like, I think that there's been people that have been sort of walking this path for a long time. And why are they all walking the same path? Because they're all living in the same world with the same problems.
Yes.
They all see these as problems, or maybe not everybody. We all have our own answers, and that's kind of alluded to as well. I do think that Roger helped create the Great Pirate Era, and part of that maybe because he read the poneglyphs, but it all sort of centers around all of these actions have all accumulated even before Roger himself.
Yes.
Because that's what the world wants. That's what the world needs. And I think that's the sort of a grand philosophy that Oda has.
When I think about it, and while you were speaking, I'm thinking about, I thought about Shanks, right? And him basically maneuvering through the world and in a way kind of holding the reins and manipulating things. But I think as the story has gone on, it seems like things have been, if they feel like they're predetermined or predestined, they feel like they organically happen, right? Like Luffy meeting his entire crew, right? All of these people have specific roles that are going to impact the end of the story, but you never really feel that Luffy met this person, but well, I guess when they meet him, oh, he's meeting this person for this reason. It feels organic. It feels like Luffy genuinely cares about these people and that these people care about him. But then you understand towards the end game of the story that they're going to have an impact on that decision that Luffy has to make, where I feel like because he has all these people, that almost makes the decision easier, right? Because they've gone through this journey together, experiencing this, it would be almost disrespectful to everything that we've consumed to say this was all supposed to happen this way. Maybe the outcome is something that, was expected, but all the twists and turns, was all that predicted as well? It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to fathom that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, going to this like omniscient figure, maybe they could see all the paths and see how it would all, because every person, and maybe you didn't force them to make these decisions, but you can ascertain which decisions they'd make, and overall it all leads to this sort of end point, but it doesn't change the enjoyment of the journey at all. We go through most movies and we kind of know most times how it's going to end up, and there's no prophecy or destiny, and that's totally in people's minds, right? This is like a knee jerk to just a particular concept that, for whatever reason, past experience dealing with it, or personal beliefs, or whatever it might be. This is how stories work. You knew from page one that Luffy was going to become this thing. No matter what you insert in here, I guess no overarching concept that you insert here is really going to change that from day one. So it's like inevitable. I don't know.
It was inevitable. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, from the beginning, Luffy, his affiliation with Shanks, his lineage, all these different things. It was the path was clear.
All you needed to hear was the title of Pirate King, right? Yes. And then it's like, okay, we know. You know, you know he's gonna do that thing, right? And that's purposeful in the story. So it feels cheap now that it feels destined. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know what you were expecting there. This is merely, I guess the big thing here, I'm just reel this back. There's a lot of people that don't like the religious connotations of it, and I think that that's sort of where this starts. And then you can start making arguments for why, okay, this has to be bad. But I think it really starts with the whole religious elements of it, and that's why there's a little bit of concern and or dislike. I think that's purely the reason. I really do. Whether people think about this or not, I'm going off a little bit here, but
I definitely understand it. I mean, I think this conversation could go on for hours because we could go to specific things and try to ascertain whether or not this was predetermined, was this Luffy's free will. But I think throughout all of it, it's obvious that Luffy's free will, that remains intact, and that does not take away from the journey, even if a prophecy foresaw everything that was going to happen, because at the end of it, I think once he finds the One Piece, he still has to make a decision whether or not to follow through with all these things.
Let's take worst case scenario. Literally an entire document exists which lists step by step the things that Luffy needs to do in order to save the world, right? And so it just tells you got to do this thing, right? So you got to go defeat Akainu, you got to go defeat Blackbeard, here's how you'll do it, all right? But then even doing it still requires something else.
Yes.
Right, because you'll be in that moment, you'll be in that fight. It's like, well, you actually got to defeat these people. You gotta to the bone, right? Yeah. Right, give it your every single time. And so
you have to commit to that.
Yeah, and so even then, there's you could still give up, right? You have the free will to give up doing those things, even if you know them.
Yeah. You still have to go through these things, go through all these battles, take all this pain, revived by Ivankov, see your brother die, still keep going.
And it won't be like that, right? It'll be better than that. But, I'm just saying, even in the worst case, right, you're not losing free will. Ever.
Yeah. No, I think we're definitely on the same page. I think people are overreacting. I think we have to wait and see and understand how this will work conceptually. But I think for the most part, the story is fine. Overreacting. Nothing has changed. One Piece is still One Piece. You're just understanding more of what's going on.
Right. I'm not going to say fleshing out the world building.
I'm not going to say I don't understand why people are acting the way they are. I do understand why someone may do that, but I think part of it is that you may have been looking at things through a lens and not accepting what Luffy is and what this journey is about. But nah, JB, do you have anything else you wanted to add? I appreciate you joining me for this. I don't want to keep you too long.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's just the last thing I want to say is there's some religious elements to One Piece, and I think we're getting closer to it. Things like Bushido, right? Zoro, right? A lot of people take that for granted.
Yes.
That's has religious connotations to it, to Buddhism. And I think that the more I become convinced of this more every passing year, that One Piece is I'm not sure if allegory is the right word, but it's a big word, so I'm going to use it. It's a tribute to Buddhism. That's what this is. A lot of the mythos, things like Wano, right, permeates with Japanese culture and Japanese beliefs. And so I think, some people aren't going to like that, but I think that's reality. And so things like destiny and fate and, just buckle yourself up for that one, because that's
intertwined. Yeah, and you made a fantastic video in Zoro that
I know
that concept before, right? Yeah, I definitely remember that video. I'll link that below. That was fantastic. I definitely link that below. But nah, JB, I appreciate you joining me, kind of clearing things up, allowing me to pick your brain a bit, because a lot of people are a bit scared, and I think how you broke it down, I think people can and will relax a bit more going forward.
I hope so, and I'm not trying to say that this has to be good, right? I'm just making it very clear, it doesn't have to be good. You can continue being skeptical, that's all right, but just like the people that have jumped off the bridge, it's like, come back up here, we got a rope.
But nah, appreciate it, JB, and thanks again for joining me, man.
I appreciate it, Brago. Thanks.
No problem.
I start doubting me, I felt lost.